U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action would like to recognize the sponsors of the 2020 Honor the Harvest Forum. Welcome to Farm Food Facts. I'm your host, Phil Lempert. One of the biggest problems that many farmers and ranchers have doesn't have anything to do with soil or climate or water. Yes, these are all issues that we must solve, but the one problem that is much easier and quicker to solve has to do with technology, specifically connecting rural communities to broadband 5G. Today, I'm joined by Marci Green. She and her husband, Lonnie, are the sixth generation on her family's farm in Southeast Spokane County. Their two sons have now joined the farming operation. Congratulations, Marci. They raise wheat, bluegrass seed, barley, dry peas, lentils, and garbanzo beans. I love saying garbanzo. Our next guest is Sam Kieffer. He serves as the American Farm Bureau Federation's Vice President of Public Affairs, where he leads the AFBF public policy, advocacy, and economic teams in advocating for farmers and ranchers with Congress and the administration. Sam's roots are on his family's grain and beef farm in Pennsylvania. Marci, Sam, welcome to Farm Food Facts.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Yes.
So I want to read something that I came across of the Office of Economics and Analytics of the FCC Commission working paper, which I didn't realize. I've never seen facts that are this stunning before, and I want both of you to comment on them. Crop yield improvements from increased internet penetration rates at thresholds of 25 megabits per second download and 3 megabits per second upload speeds, which is not very much. First of all, we want to say that. Among the findings, doubling the number of 25 plus, 3 plus connections per 1,000 households is associated with a 3.6% increase in corn yields as measured in bushels per acre. They also found evidence of cost savings at thresholds of 10 megabytes per second download and 0.768 megabits per second upload speeds, with a 2.4% decrease in operating expenses per farm operation. That amounts to 6% of a difference for a farm, which, to be honest with you, from everything and every farmer that I talked to, it's basically the difference between survival and prospering. Sam, what do you say when you read things like this? Why hasn't the government, moved forward to improve it? And I know there's this new committee that FCC has done, and that's great news, and hopefully it moves quickly, but this is absurd.
You're right. And farming is an occupation that runs on small margins. And 6% is more than difference between survival and flourishing. Farming is has been for quite some time very technical, and there is amazing technology available to farm families and ranch families to be more efficient, extremely precise with their inputs. But that takes data. It takes internet access, and not just shoddy internet access. It takes reliable and high-speed internet access to utilize these tools, to store the data, to leverage the information that's available to help make informed decisions, and in many cases, instantaneous decisions is what you're going to do on the farm. We see this akin to rural electrification. Many moons ago, there was a very large concerted effort by the federal government to put reliable electricity in homes all across the nation. Today, we don't think about electricity until the power goes out. And many homes don't think about internet and broadband until the Wi-Fi router goes down. But these are not just homes, farms are businesses, and we need to make sure that we position our nation, our government, our economy to prioritizing reliable and high-speed broadband all across the nation.
So, Marci, tell me about your internet. Do you have good internet on the farm?
Our internet is okay. It's not, I wouldn't call it good, but it's better than some. Here at our house for our office, we're very limited in our options for internet. What we actually use is basically hotspots from our cell phone plan. That's our main home internet. We've tried satellite internet and it was not satisfactory at all. It was slow. There's some places they have internet availability where, and I'll first of all apologize. I'm not a technical person. I don't know all the right words to use.
That's fine.
But where you have to be able to see a tower from your house in order to receive the internet signal. And our house actually sits down in a hole a little bit with a lot of hills around it. And so we aren't able to visually, have that line of sight to any of those towers. So what we deal with is, like I said, just using our cell phone plan hotspots, and that's our main internet. As far as out in the field, when my husband and sons are out, working and trying to use internet, which they do a lot in the field, with the technology, just like Sam was saying, we use a lot of technology and mapping and things, and it's all it's real spotty. It depends where you're at in the field. But I also work with a lot of other farmers who would love to have the internet capabilities that I have, even though I complain about mine all the time. But, I'm very involved in the Wheat Growers Association here in Washington State. And so we do a whole lot of Zoom meetings now that in the last year. And, some people, in order to participate in those meetings, they have to get in their vehicle and drive down the road a half a mile or a mile to where they have good enough service to actually connect. So, like I said, mine personally is okay, not great, but we get by with it. So,
matter of fact, I'm smiling because we've had farmers right here on Farm Food Facts that, in order to be interviewed, had to get into their truck, do it on the cell phone, and do exactly what you said, drive a couple miles away
right.
to have, enough signal. So how would your business change on the farm if you had reliable, strong internet access?
I think mostly I'm thinking about, in the field, there are a lot of precision agriculture applications and things that we could do more of in terms of mapping and GPS. We do use GPS and those things, but we could do more of it. Right now, a lot of what we do has to be done like, they take a iPad or whatever out to the field and they do their mapping, and then they have to go to an office or someplace that has good enough internet to upload it into the computers and into the system. If that could be done in real time, that would be helpful. I know the fact that you quoted earlier about the speed of internet connectivity and how that impacts profitability, I had not heard that before, but it makes a lot of sense to me, because with the current farming practices that we use, a lot of it is, for example, we do variable rate fertilizer, and that's all based on mapping of your fields and GPS and things. And by using that, number one, we get the fertilizer into the we spray more in areas of the field where we can utilize the nutrients more, and then we back it off and spray less where we don't. And that's all done automatically, but it's all based on the maps and GPS. So that ends up, it increases yield and it decreases expenses, because we're not using products that we don't need. we're just much more efficient. So that, like I said, I hadn't heard that fact before, but it doesn't surprise me either.
So, Sam, let's talk about the American Farm Bureau Federation's commitment and mission to broadband infrastructure. What are you guys doing, and what's the timeline for this?
Well, thank you, Phil. So we represent, farm and ranch and rural families from all across the country. And, in a pandemic, how do we engage with our folks? We're in the people business, and under normal circumstances, we engage with our folks in face-to-face meetings. So we've had to learn how to operate differently, and that has shown a greater light on the need for more reliable and better broadband infrastructure all across the nation. Last year, we were active with Congress trying to achieve legislation that would help set the stage on where we go from here. I think most parties engaged in this conversation understand that there is a need to invest. But in a time like now, when the federal dollar needs to be prioritized, we want to make sure that we are focusing our efforts where it's needed most and where it can have the best opportunity for the broadest impact. And one of the first and foremost areas is in identifying where to spend, where to invest federal resources. We need to look at how we are currently analyzing and improve how we're analyzing where those soft spots are in broadband access. For years, decades, we've been measuring penetration of high-speed internet by how the delivery companies, the broadband companies, are reporting back to the Federal Communications Commission, and it's a very low bar. A very low bar. So if a handful of households in a certain square mile radius have decent internet access, that area is considered served, not underserved, but served. It's a very low bar. So the first thing we need to do is get more granular data on the speeds of internet in households in a much better fashion, so that we can identify when, where, and how to spend federal dollars. The Biden administration has made it a priority of theirs to focus on broadband. The Trump administration previously made it a priority of theirs to focus on broadband. And there's various attempts to get the ball rolling, but where we need to start is to figure out and properly measure where we need the infrastructure, where we need to invest those dollars, because the information we have right now, Phil, is not as reliable as it could or should be.
So what you're telling me is, when I'm watching TV and I see all these cellular companies advertising that they've got 5G, it's nationwide. They're showing you, in rural areas on farms, that everybody has 5G. Don't believe
it. I won't say don't believe it, but
you can, or I can. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. If Marci, doesn't have good service, and we could change the economics by 6%, and again, that was just on corn. I don't believe it. And you said that the current administration and the administration before it have it as a priority. If it's a priority, why didn't it happen over the past 4 years?
Great question. I think a lot of it has to do with where we spend where we prioritize and how we focus on it. And there's a lot of discussion out there about satellite as an opportunity. Marci gave you her experience with satellite. There are opportunities to get connected, but the latency and the speed of that connection, it leaves some to be desired. Right now, a lot of our folks are needing to utilize cellular 5G in order to connect, not just for interviews with you, Phil, but also for work, for school, making sure their kids are socially and academically connected, in the middle of a pandemic. We need Congress, to make it a priority. The administrations, current and previous administrations, said it's a priority, but we need bold leadership and bipartisan leadership in the federal government to make it a priority and be willing to spend some money and to partner with the private sector to focus private and public dollars in a manner to adequately expand broadband access. And this is not just a rural issue. This is an issue that transcends population density. There are schools, school students in highly populated urban centers that cannot get access, reliable access to connect to their classrooms.
So Sam, as I look across farming in general, what we've seen over the past year since the pandemic began is consumers for the first time really seeing the frailties of our supply chain. And a lot of attention is there. A lot of attention is, those people who are working on farms. People are more concerned now, more than ever, at least in my lifetime, about farmers making money, farmers' importance to our livelihood. Do you think that, the wind is now at our back, and whether it's broadband or any other issues that Marci and other farmers are facing, that we will now have, more power and more attention for farmers and ranchers?
You raise a good point, Phil. Certainly, farmers have been widely respected by the American public for quite some time. But, April and May of last year was the first time, that many generations in this country saw empty shelves in the grocery store. And it was scary. And the supply chain burped. We needed to, on a dime, shift from producing the supply chain itself, shift from manufacturing and packaging food and food items for restaurant and commercial settings to retail grocery shelves. The food was there, but the system in between had to catch its footing and regroup. And that caught the attention of Americans all across the country. And while Americans were widely respected prior to that, I think you're right that more folks now have the empathetic sense of what it takes to grow food. We had an amazing organic campaign that our members across the nation latched onto, #StillFarming, that they used to tell the story, and we used to more or less help set the public at ease that there is not a food shortage. We just need the supply chain to catch up. And we reached a tremendous amount of people throughout that very organic campaign. But throughout all of this, there is what I would call not just a renewed interest, but a reinvigorated interest in consumers getting to know and support farmers in their communities, as well as farm families, ranch families, realizing that there's an opportunity there for them to engage in those conversations as well. And it's not just a transactional relationship of, hey, I've got cattle, let me sell you some beef. We're also talking about those issues that impact the economy that most of the time farmers and ranchers and agribusinesses are just thinking about because it impacts their pocketbook. But I think the American public is seeing, with renewed interest for the first time in quite some time, that those issues impact them as well. Will it make things easier? I hope, but at the same time, agriculture, is not the only sector of the economy that experience a supply chain burp. And what we're talking about here is broadband, and information is and access to fast information is vital, not just to agriculture, but every sector of the economy. You talk about healthcare, and you talk about our children and family members needing to engage in telehealth for their annual checkups. So I think all these things coming to a head create an opportunity for agriculture, the food industry, the rest of the economy to really join hands and say, we've been chewing around the edges of this discussion for quite some time. Let's put partisan talking points to the side. Let's put rural and urban differences to the side, because in this instance, those things unite us. And let's focus on creating and delivering solutions that will offer reliable broadband access to all parts of the nation, not just one.
So, Marci, we're going to give you the last word. And it's a two-part question. Number one, how has farming, your farming, changed during the pandemic? And what are you looking forward to after this whole pandemic is over?
Well, as far as how it's changed during the pandemic, our farm has been fairly insulated, just in that we aren't high labor intensive like some types of agriculture. And the people who work on our farm are primarily our family members. So we're already relatively remote in that, but it has impacted some of our prices for our products that we sell. And it's also impacted getting parts. And the part of it was because they slowed down. The transportation structure slowed down, and the local dealers aren't always able to stock the parts that we need. And so when something breaks down and they say, oh, well, you need this part, but it's going to take us 4 days to track it down and get it here. So that's one thing. And then other than that, it's there's also a lot of things that have to be done virtually, where we used to just go to meetings. For example, my husband and my sons all have private applicator pesticide licenses. They have to get credits every year, continuing education credits, to maintain those licenses. In the past, the local fertilizer chemical dealers all had, a couple times a year, they would have in-person grower meetings. And so, that if you attended those, you got your credits for your license. Well, those aren't happening. So now everyone has to get their credits by attending virtual workshops and Zoom meetings and things. And so that has been a challenge. In fact, they're working on that in my family and on our farm. That's what they're doing this week. And yesterday, just for example, I personally attended 4 Zoom meetings having to do with our state and national wheat organizations. And at the same time, my husband attended 3 other Zoom meetings trying to get his pesticide credits. So our internet was being used 100% yesterday, all day long. But those are ways that it has impacted us. And as far as what I'm looking forward to when this is all over, is face-to-face interactions with my fellow farmers and growers, and in-person meetings. The value of having that face-to-face interaction just can't be replaced with the technology, with Zoom and virtual meetings.
Well said. So, Marci, Sam, thank you both so much for joining us today on Farm Food Facts, and we look forward to Marci and every other farmer in the country having broadband very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action would like to recognize the sponsors of the 2020 Honor the Harvest Forum. Our movement sponsors, United Soybean Board and National Pork Board. Our presenting sponsors, Wells Fargo, Cargill, and DMI. Our platinum sponsor, the Native American Agriculture Fund. Our gold sponsors, Bader Rudder, Bayer, Corteva, Dairy West, Edelman, Ernst & Young, the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research, Frog, McDonald's, Nebraska Soybean Board, and Nutrien. Our silver sponsors, CoBank and OCP North America. Our bronze sponsor, Nestle Purina. Our copper sponsor, Ruan. And our donor sponsor, Tyson. For more on all things food and agriculture, please visit us at usfarmersandranchers.org. Also, be sure to look out for us on Facebook at U.S. Farmers and Ranchers and on Twitter at USFRA. Until next time.